Welcome to Taking Stock. I'm Amanda Lang. Coming up on the show, more federal help for housing, but does it get us much closer to the goal? Plus, a dire warning on climate change has us looking at how Canada stacks up. And we'll look ahead to a federal budget that has to walk a line between affordability and inflation. That's all ahead. First, for the week that was in business, it's time for the briefs. For the first time in 2 years, wage increases are keeping pace with inflation in Canada, with price increases hitting 5.2% in February, while wages rose 5.4%. That may spell relief for households, but it also makes it more difficult to tame inflation, since wages only reset every now and then, and higher prices may be locked in. Meanwhile, while prices moderated in February, they remain extremely high for groceries, highlighting that some inflationary forces are beyond our central bank's control. The minimum wage on federally regulated jobs will rise to $16.65 an hour as of April 1st, up from the current $15.55. In provinces where the minimum wage is higher, the higher rate will apply. The increase raised concerns about the impact on small business.
This giant increase in the federal minimum wage will put pressure on provinces to try to match it. And if that happens, that's where where the rubber hits the road and where small businesses may get broadsided.
Also this week, Canada's largest bank raised the bar on having employees in the office. RBC said 1 or 2 days a week will be the maximum to work from home, arguing that culture and productivity are harmed by too much absence from the office. Ontario delivered a massive $204.7 billion budget on the back of revenue of $200 billion, thanks to higher taxes and inflation. That will allow for a modest deficit this fiscal year and a promise of balance next year. Total government spending is now 30% higher than it was just 5 years ago. Perhaps with a nod to the recent turmoil in banking in the U.S., the U.S. Central Bank raised rates this week, but less than previous forecasts. The 0.25% hike still puts the Federal Reserve ahead of other central banks. The Fed also affirmed its faith in the U.S. banking system, while signaling a pause in rate hikes may be ahead. U.S. President Joe Biden finally made a visit to Canada, and trade between the two countries was very much on the agenda as the U.S. pursues a Buy America plan for the 21st century, while Canada reminds it of our free trade pact. It is understood that border control and Canada's military spending are also very much on the table. There's a new dire warning from the UN on climate change. The Earth is warming at a pace that puts it on track to overshoot the minimal level considered safe, or 1.5 degrees over pre-industrial levels. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said it's late, but not too late, saying humans are on thin ice and the ice is melting fast. And those are your business briefs. Last week, the feds announced a $4 billion housing accelerator fund to help municipal governments fast-track up to 100,000 new homes. That's part of the kind of affordability file that's likely to be a central part of the budget next week. Ahmed Hussen is Federal Minister of Housing and Diversity and Inclusion. Thanks for being with us, Minister. And I want to start by asking how the $4 billion gets us closer to the millions of houses we're told that we need.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. The Housing Accelerator Fund is actually about systems changes. The 100,000 additional homes that it will unlock is for the immediate period, but beyond that, the systems changes that the Housing Accelerator Fund will incentivize and will put in place will actually deliver even more housing and will enable us as a country to double the number of new homes built in Canada over the next 10 years. The fact is, it takes too long to build housing in many communities across the country, particularly in the large cities, and we need to do everything that we can to work with our municipal partners, all levels of government, to make sure that we are unlocking additional housing supply. We know supply is part of the challenge when it comes to housing, and we need that supply, and we need it now.
So you're talking about innovations that change the way we think about the supply side of the equation.
Yes, but we are also talking about the adoption of policies like inclusionary zoning. We're talking about more density around transit hubs. We're talking about more affordable housing, more mixed housing, more purposely built rental housing, and yes, more homes, more attainable homes for Canadian working families. So we need all types of housing. We have a shortage of supply in this country. The Housing Accelerator Fund is about working directly with municipalities so that they can increase their own capacity to unlock additional housing supply. It also takes into consideration the need and how can we better leverage federal infrastructure dollars to unlock additional housing supply. So we will be working very closely with municipalities, with rural communities, with northern communities, with indigenous communities and governments to put together this Housing Accelerator Fund so that we can unlock additional housing supply. We can make systemic changes that will enable us to get on the track of doubling the number of new homes built in Canada in the next 10 years.
So, Minister, how does this fit in with the government's intention to try to make life more affordable for Canadians?
Well, the Housing Accelerator Fund was it's $4 billion was already allocated as part of Budget 2022. We've now announced its launch. The fact of the matter is, this program is, yes, it's substantial, but it is one of many programs in the National Housing Strategy, a strategy that has grown immensely over the last number of years. The strategy that has led to the repair and construction of affordable housing from coast to coast to coast. So this is yet another program that we're putting in place to ensure that we unlock additional housing supply. As far as the budget is concerned, of course, I can't speculate on the budget, but what I can tell you is that we will continue to have the backs of Canadians. We will continue to be there to make sure that we're there for Canadian seniors. We're there for Canadians with disabilities. We're there for the most vulnerable members of our society. We're there to make sure that we continue to put conditions in place that help real families, working families and individuals meet the cost of living challenge, affordability challenges. We've put in place a national early learning and childcare program that is delivering deep cuts to childcare fees across the country. That is helping put money back in the pockets of families. We're doing so with supports for rent. We're supporting children from low-income families with the cost of dental care. Mm-hmm. We're doing everything that we can for seniors and so on. And so we'll continue to support Canadians, and we'll continue to support economic growth so that we continue our strong track record of job creation and community prosperity.
Thanks so much, Minister. Ahmed Hussen is Minister of Housing, Diversity and Inclusion. Still ahead, the Earth is warming at an alarming rate, and tackling climate change will come at a cost. Stay with us.